SEC. Woo! I'm not gambling this year, Rob, on the SEC. I can't do the gambling stuff. Rob Browne.
Yeah.
Brendan Martin here for you. Rob, you're live to go. We are endeavoring to deal with the worlds of the internets and everything else. Rob, welcome to the program. Rob is playing hurt because he's trying to get this to go. He's doing a great job. Rob, welcome to your own show, my friend.
Yeah, well, you're talking about these bets on these games. This is the most difficult year I can remember in a while, but people are having to adjust. We had a really interesting speaker last night at the Touchdown Club in Memphis, Corey Morgan. He is the general manager of Alabama Crimson Tide football. He's been with Kalen DeBoer at Fresno, in Washington, and now at Alabama. So it's fun to watch, I can tell you that, and to hear what's happening. So, look, got a great show today. Ben Troupe checks in with us first, followed by Will Gunter over in Columbia, South Carolina, 107.5 The Game. Big win for the Gamecocks over Texas A&M Saturday, 44-20. Talk about that. South Carolina now has to go to Nashville and play Vandy Saturday. And then Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Rebels, golly, they go up to Fayetteville, get a big win, come home. Now they get to play Georgia. That's the SEC.
And we got basketball, Rob, basketball.
Yeah, we are about to start basketball. And Rodney Orr,
Gators played last night. Yeah, Gators played.
Gators played. I was on your dad's show last night. Here's what's crazy. And, you know, what I'm seeing, bottom line, with college football is the portal has changed everything. NIL's done even more to do it. You better keep up with where those transfers are going because you will see them again across the line of scrimmage. So, lot to cover today, and
we'll bring in, I know a guy knows a little bit about the football, that game. This guy named Ben Troupe joins us in the program. Ben, Smoke, what's going on, my friend? How's Atlanta? Or you're not in Atlanta, you're in Savannah, Atlanta. How are you, Ben?
I'm good, and when I'm listening to Rob and Rob talking about the transfer portal, Rob talking about NIL and different things, right? Remember the time when we used to say, see how these coaches will sign a big contract and within that first year they'll leave. They'll go to another school. Nobody will say anything. Parity in college football has changed people. Why? Because when the Blue Bloods aren't winning, people start panicking. When teams like Vanderbilt are not only winning but beating good teams, Vanderbilt could shake up this whole thing. Vanderbilt could potentially be one of the 12 teams, 4 teams coming from the SEC. We're not used to that, and I get it. But until coaches have to honor their full contract, and these are coaches that are winning, I don't want to hear anything about these players. You know, everything a player learns, they learn from a coach. They learn how to practice, they learn how to play, they learn how to be good teammates, and they learn to go where the money is. Coaches go where the money is. Matt Rule is the best case. He has a good year at Baylor. He goes to Carolina, stinks it up at Carolina. He signs a 7-year deal at, now he's down there with Nebraska. No one said a word. He's getting paid by 2 teams to coach one team.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad to be with you, Smoke. Glad to be with you, Rob. I love it because I love chaos. One of my favorite movies is Batman. When they had the Joker on there, and he said, as long as everything goes to plan, no one panics. Right, Rob? I mean,
Batman. I like that.
But think about it. Remember when the Joker said, as long as everything goes to plan, no one panics.
Right.
But something doesn't go to plan, people start panicking. Mm-hmm. It's fine, people. We still got a lot of season left to go. But remember, before the season started, it was all about Ole Miss. And we said, can they handle the pressure of having expectation? We'll see. But them boys from Vanderbilt, y'all better watch out. Because that last game of the year, with the last game of the year of Vanderbilt and Tennessee could have major implications on the college football playoff. Because if you go to the SEC championship game and you lose, you're out. And if you don't go to the SEC championship game, you can still get in. So it's almost benefiting you not to go to Atlanta this year, but we'll see what happens. We'll see.
Wow. I haven't heard that perspective, Rob. Have you heard that? Not go to Atlanta, it might be a better deal for you.
Brenden.
Yeah.
Can y'all see me?
Yes, we're looking right at
you. Okay. You're fine.
Okay.
We hear you.
All right. We don't know what I tell you. Verizon on these hotspots. I don't understand how they work, but anyway, I'm looking. Ben made a good point. Parity in college football. When the Blue Bloods, the power programs aren't winning, people go into panic mode. And last night, talking and listening to Courtney Morgan, who's the general manager of Alabama football, he played at Michigan. He was a freshman when Tom Brady was like a fifth-year senior. He was an offensive lineman. He said Tom Brady used to come in and try to get his tickets from him because they were both from California. And it was really interesting to hear Courtney's journey and how they ended up at Alabama and how they rate players for the NIL. You've got like a dominant alpha up here, and then you go down to the next level, a guy that can be a starter. And then he said there's no debate about it. A low character, not such great ability, you don't even sign those guys. He said in the portal, if you can't go and get a guy that's going to be an immediate starter, you don't even bother with him. I want to bring in Will Gunter with us, Ben, over in Columbia, South Carolina. Will is really good. Heard him on the Chuck Oliver show. Chuck Oliver, he called you Bill Gunter the other day. I'm like, wait, it's Will, W-I-L. And Ben, he knows this Gamecock program really well. Does a great statewide show in the Palmetto State, Florence, Columbia, I think Myrtle Beach as well, where my parents had one of their 2 honeymoons, spent 2 weeks in Myrtle Beach. Gorgeous place where you live over there. Let's talk about, it's a new Texas A&M. This isn't the old A&M. They go to Columbia, and the Fighting Beamers went crazy, tied 20 apiece at the half. In the second half, y'all left the dock and just never looked back. What do you say about this Gamecock program? And now you go to Nashville to the Skinner Box, 26,000 Saturday to play the Fighting Pavias.
Yeah, it was a fun night. Still recovering. Tuesday took a long time to recover from that. That was a heck of a party. I tell you what, they did a good job of the fans did a good job of getting in there, making it loud and keeping kind of the pressure on A&M. I wasn't a big fan of Texas A&M. If you had looked at their resume previously, what they had done, it wasn't like they were world beaters. They kind of slipped past Arkansas. They had a couple games, 6-point win against Bowling Green. Everything came together in the third quarter against LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, we joked, we call him Sussmeier. He turned suspect again and started throwing it to anybody and everybody that wasn't wearing an LSU jersey. And I still will never understand what exactly happened with LSU preparing for Marcel Reed and how poorly that went. So I thought it set up really, really well for South Carolina on Saturday night, coming off of the bye week, finally getting both Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders like completely healthy. I can't say that they were completely healthy in the month of October. And then the defense has just been lights out. The defenses, they've made some mistakes here and there. They are one of the worst teams in the SEC at giving up explosive plays. Yeah, they're kind of good for that once a game, that they're going to give up some big play and have a bust. But obviously, it was interesting to see them make the adjustments in the second half to really lock down Texas A&M, and obviously losing Le'Veon Moss there in the I think within the first 10 minutes was a blow. But Marcel Reed, that was a different environment. He hadn't been around something like that, and it kind of got to him just a little bit, just enough for South Carolina to make just enough big plays to really change the momentum there in the second half.
Real quick before I go to Ben, because I want to get Ben's take on it. Courtney Morgan, the general manager of Alabama football, again last night speaking at the Touchdown Club in Memphis, said y'all got 2 big defensive linemen, and all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank. They're both from Washington, D.C. He said in the past they're probably at Penn State. They're probably somewhere in the Big Ten, but because of NIL and all the stuff that's going on, they're both at South Carolina. Who are those 2 guys, the 2 big defensive linemen I think he's talking about?
Well, I'm looking real quick to see where Kyle Kennard is the other one. I assume he's talking about Kyle Kennard. Kyle Kennard is from Atlanta and went to Georgia Tech and transferred here this past season. I want to make sure. I'm pretty sure he was from Atlanta. Maybe he ended up in DC, but he's from Atlanta. The other one's Dylan Stewart. Dylan Stewart's the 5-star freshman. who has come in. South Carolina built a great relationship with him. They had some ties up there in the DC area. It's just kind of another example of Shane Beamer really being aggressive on the recruiting trail, knowing how to build relationships and land some of these surprising prospects. I mean, again, that was the second one they landed. They landed Nick Harbor 2 years ago as a 5-star prospect out of there. And they've done a good job in that area. They lost out on a big time offensive lineman this year, Jalen Gilchrist, who ended up choosing Maryland. And that was a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, Kennard and Stewart are the two guys he must be talking about.
And Harbor is from DC though, correct?
Correct. Yeah, in that area.
Okay. Yeah, he was talking about him. I know as well. Ben, jump in here with Will Gunter, Columbia, South Carolina, 107.5 The Game. Put the app on your phone. You want to follow the Gamecocks and learn a lot about college football, basketball, the Atlanta Braves, whatever. Will is your man, Big Ben.
Shane Beamer gets it. And I think that the frustrating thing with South Carolina is the fact that they have those type of performers against teams that's coming in with a lot of momentum. And people are like, well, where is this? I go back to that South Carolina LSU game. I'm like, listen, my mom is probably the biggest SEC fan there is. Florida first. And she'll call me and say, did you see South Carolina versus LSU? Like, what happened? And then you'll see Texas A&M. Now, I will say this about Shane Beamer. People always talk about Beamer ball in the SEC. Beamer ball in the SEC. Coached at South Carolina, went to Oklahoma State. I used to watch South Carolina in the office to see what's going on. I do think Beamer is the guy. But you can't be consistently inconsistent because people get frustrated. They're like, wait a minute. You could do that? But then you lay an egg against this team, an egg against that team. The team that's making everybody frustrated in the SEC is a Vanderbilt. Because people are like, wait a minute. Vanderbilt's beating top teams in the country. Yes, people are going to talk about the Georgia State situation, but that's early in the season. I get it. I understand that. But South Carolina, you can't go backwards now. You can't have a performance like that, whether you got Vanderbilt next, and no matter what, if South Carolina doesn't beat Vanderbilt, they're not going to say, well, Vanderbilt is a different team this year. They're going to say you lost to Vanderbilt. Fans don't look at it the same way we look at it. They don't look at it judged on this year, but South Carolina dangerous now. They're a dangerous squad. They as you mentioned, where they got a good defense. When their offense is balanced, run the football, don't throw. The easy way to coach quarterbacks is this. I say, you see our colors? Yeah, just throw it to us. Yeah. Don't throw it to them. Don't get too much in the X and O's. But I've been impressed with South Carolina only because they have fought in a lot of these games. I mean, the way they played on Saturday, I was like, I'm trying to go back and forth with each game, and I'm like, God. I said, did Texas A&M fans say something crazy? Did the coach say something crazy? Did the coach do the Hugh Freeze and say something? You don't go to Vanderbilt. You don't go to South Carolina when you get a chance to go to A&M. I was very impressed with South Carolina, but like I'm gonna keep saying with South Carolina, how do they finish the season? It's gonna come down to how do they look, these next 4 games.
Yeah, and Will, along those lines, you got to carry over to go to Vanderbilt. How do you look at this game? What do you think is going to happen?
It's actually a good matchup for South Carolina. We're going to really go into our deep dive on Vanderbilt tomorrow, but I brought this up today, and I'm going to give you kind of a crazy stat. And I don't know how often, Ben, you're an offensive guy. You've been around quarterbacks. Tell me how often you've ever heard this stat. In the last 3 SEC games, not counting the non-conference game that Vanderbilt just won, Diego Pavia has thrown for exactly 143 yards in each game. Have you ever heard of a quarterback having 3 of the last 4 games throwing for exactly 143 yards? That's Vanderbilt's offense is not. Vanderbilt is a gritty football team led by a gritty quarterback who just makes plays. He's kind of similar, reminds me a lot of Steven Garcia about 12 years ago here. Garcia was ultra talented, but he just made plays, whether it was with his legs or whether it was making the right throw at the right time. Matter of fact, if you look at the numbers, Garcia's game against Alabama in that massive upset in 2010, 17 of 21 for over 200 yards, were very similar to Pavia's 16 of 20 for over 200 yards in that particular game. But Vanderbilt's offense isn't explosive. They kind of want to grind you down, drag you into the muck. Well, South Carolina's defense is very good right now, and they're going to get after this team. Again, I mentioned it, the front 6, the 4 linemen and the 2 linebackers, 15 of those guys, 15 of them are either or some form of a senior, super senior, whatever, redshirt senior. 15 out of those 18 guys are out of that 3 deep. It's really incredible what you got there. And then the secondary's really come along. O.D. Fortune has had a big season. He had the huge interception against Marcel Reed when Texas A&M was driving to maybe change momentum in that game. Nick Eamon-Warry is now starting to get attention for being a first-round pick. I'm going to give you a crazy stat because you don't think about this with South Carolina. But we still have a lot of time to let this play out. Eamon-Warry and Kyle Kennard, that defensive end, who could potentially break Jadeveon Clowney's single-season sack record, are getting first-round interest. They're getting first-round interest. Will they end up in there? We'll see. Eamon-Warry may, because he's 6'3", 225, and is a safety and hits and runs. TJ Sanders is another defensive lineman that doesn't get talked about, but at least at CBS Sports, he's in 3 of the 6 first-round mock draft picks. It's not inconceivable that South Carolina's operating right now a defense, and then we're thinking Dylan Stewart way down the line, the freshman defensive end continues to improve. That South Carolina's operating a defense with 4 first-round draft picks. It sounds crazy to say, and Ben, you know how those combines go, and what those NFL they don't always think correctly. Things get a little wacky, but yeah, I mean that defense. So I think it's a good matchup. And then what's going to be interesting is what Ben talked about, the offense. This offense has been all over the map. They've given up 32 sacks, at least going into last weekend. Wow. They were second to last in the nation in sacks allowed. They were the last in the nation in sack yardage allowed. The offensive line has struggled. The offensive line did not particularly grade out well Saturday night. Lenore Sellers just made plays. He just simply made plays. It was like watching a bigger, stronger version of Connor Shaw run around 12 years ago. He got hit on a couple. There was a play very early on, second or third play of the game. A&M's got an unblocked linebacker blitzing right up the middle and hits Sellers around the chest head area, and he just breaks out of it, rolls right, finds Sanders for about 20 yards. So we want to see more from this offense and what it looks like. Are they healthy now? Is Lenoris finally over that ankle injury from the LSU game? Maybe if he stays healthy in that game, it's a little bit different. Is Rocket Sanders back completely healthy from a sprained ankle against Akron? And Ben, one thing you said that we've been watching about Shane Beamer, the last 3 years, this is one of the worst, counting this year, this is one of the worst penalized teams in the country. They have finished below 110th in penalties the last 3. They were on pace for it this year. I don't know if they've moved ahead of that. Obviously, we can talk about refs and penalties and, should have this been? But South Carolina Saturday night, 3 penalties, 25 yards. 1 turnover, 3 penalties for just 25 yards. We're trying to come up with a new variation. It's called sacks, turnovers, and penalties. These stupid rankings is what we have. And we're trying to figure out how they play into a game how many sacks you give up, how many turnovers you have, and how many penalties you have. Texas A&M on Saturday night had 14. South Carolina had 4 combined. We're working on it. We're trademarking it. You get the point. We're having fun with it. Because Ben, I think I told you my co-host is a former South Carolina football player here from the state of South Carolina, played there. So, he talks about those little things that maybe as analysts or as non-football people we don't catch up on as much. But sacks, turnovers, and penalties, the stupid rating. What does that equal in your games?
Harder game, make it life harder on yourself, and I think I like that too though, because the way in which y'all putting it, that's how coaches say it. These are stupid penalties. These are things that's making life harder on us. But I like what you said, Will, about Diego. Comparing him, to a guy, the guys in the past, like Connor Shaw. I compare him to Nick Marshall. Like when I see him play, because the thing about it is, when I see Diego play, I see a guy saying, "Look, man, I played in New Mexico State. I'm in the SEC. I'm at Vanderbilt. So if I did bad, and people gonna say, well, he's at Vanderbilt. Well, what happened if I do good? Like, what happened if I'm doing things Jay Cutler didn't do? Now, I ain't got the passing stats Jay Cutler had, but Jay Cutler ain't got the wins that I got. And I think the thing about Diego, what makes Diego dangerous is he's confident. Diego is not the greatest player you ever going to see, but he don't lack confidence. He's like, dude, we winning. Like, we winning. I understand what winning at Vanderbilt is. Winning at Vanderbilt, every win should count twice, but we beat Alabama. Georgia didn't beat Alabama, right? We ain't gonna. Oh my God, we ain't gonna talk about South Carolina versus Alabama. That was another one. I'm like, oh man. And you got to understand the moment. I do think Shane Beamer is good for South Carolina for this reason. When people go, why do coaches play music and dance with the players after games. Because I got to resonate with them. No, I wouldn't do this, if I was at Oklahoma. I ain't at Oklahoma. I'm at South Carolina. If my players don't see that I care about them as people and as players, because sometimes you go from wanting to win in South Carolina saying, I want to win for my coach. I'm tired of people talking about my coach. I got to win for him. And that makes to me, but South Carolina, they got to keep going. Because once again, you cannot play the way you played against Texas A&M and go to Vanderbilt and look normal. You just can't do it. And I get it. Once again, I'll do my best to not disrespect Vanderbilt and look at them for where they are this year, 2024, as its own season. But if you lose to Vanderbilt, 10 years from now, we're gonna say, do you remember the time we beat Texas A&M? I like to go from a fan that don't know nothing but the names on the box score. If South Carolina don't beat Vanderbilt, people gonna what's going on in South Carolina? They ain't gonna say, good job, Vandy. They're gonna say, what's going on? And like I said, if South Carolina decides to play balance, if South Carolina doesn't have the stupid penalties and don't throw the ball to the other team, it's going to be hard for Vanderbilt to beat them because Diego does a good job of improvising. 143 yards passing, that sounds like some Navy stuff. That sounds like some Army stuff, some Georgia Southern stuff. Yes. Teams that don't throw the ball, and when they do, hey, man, that guy caught it. He took it for like 80. They're going to have to find a way to make Diego really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if they do that for 4 quarters, I don't think this will be much of a game. As long as South Carolina looks like Texas A&M, South Carolina, second half, and not, you get the onside kick versus Alabama. I'm looking at this. I said, oh, they got the onside, and then you say, and I'm looking at the quarterback saying, don't throw the ball to the other team. What? Don't? We got the momentum, and he throws it to the other team, and it's all.
We'll respond to that. That's a great take, Ben.
Well, let me go back. I'm going to bring up something that we talked a little bit about this morning. You look at Vanderbilt. Ben, you've played SEC football, so you know what it's like. You know the bumps and bruises, and when you get into November. This will be the 6th straight game for Vanderbilt. Now, South Carolina had a bye going into Texas A&M. So South Carolina's played 1, but you had that bye. Also, you were coming off of that trip. You played Oklahoma. You took the bye a week. You played. Diego Pavia's been beat up a little bit this weekend against Auburn. He's hobbling around on the field a little bit. Diego Pavia is, you get this point in the season, everybody's got bumps and bruises. Everybody's beat up a little bit. But Ben, I'm interested. You play 6 straight. You play Kentucky, who's physical. You play Alabama, who's physical. You play Texas, who's physical. Auburn is a physical football team. They're just lacking right now. You've played these games. Now you get South Carolina coming in here. South Carolina's a little bit more fresh. Again, I mentioned Sellers and Sanders being healthy. I think that's a big part of Saturday. If you start hitting Pavia left and right, you get on him early. I think that's a big deal Saturday. And South Carolina, outside of the Mississippi and Old Dominion. Old Dominion was very odd. Mississippi, South Carolina just didn't show up from the get-go. But that team has had opportunities. They've just done dumb things, whether it's a penalty or a pivotal turnover that has really changed a game against LSU, against Alabama. They got the things working against Oklahoma, and then obviously second half last week. But I think that injury stuff, but the 6 weeks, especially going into November, that wears on you, man. That wears on you.
You got to treat like a boxing man. I would say if they treat like a boxing match, they say, listen, we got to hit Diego every other play. We can't hit him. He's gonna hand the ball off. So the plays he's back passing, we got to hit him. And sometimes we. And I don't want to. I know Coach Beamer ain't gonna say this. We used to getting penalties. So if one of those hits are late, we do that. We do those type of things anyway because I believe South Carolina got to establish mentality from the opening quarter and say, look, Diego, you are the reason why y'all are winning. Take nothing away from your whole team. I get it. It's a team effort. If Diego is flustered, he got to look like the 4th quarter in the 1st quarter. And if he's getting up slow, we know he ain't allowed to throw for more than 143 yards. They don't even let him do it. Hey, man, he's at 142. Really? It's like a pitch count. I've never heard of that in my life. But Diego is a confident player. More than he's just a straight talented player. If you are South Carolina, you got to unleash that defensive line. And Shane Beamer got to say, look, man, last time I checked, also all kinds of sport, basketball, baseball, football, the goal is to take away their best player and see if they can beat us. You do that, Vanderbilt going to realize real quick, hey, man, this is a different South Carolina team. Because like I said, no one saw Vanderbilt being where they at record-wise right now. But a lot of things went their way in those type of games. Now, Alabama, Vanderbilt, no one saw that. Good Lord, I didn't see that. But I don't see it being that type of game. But you're right. That's 6 straight weeks getting beat up. I mean, the Auburn score wasn't indicative of what happened in the game as far as like how they hitting him. South Carolina come out with that type of mentality and they're gonna beat up on Diego. Yeah, I think they got a good shot to win because, like I said, momentum towards the end of the season has a lot to do with how teams play. South Carolina coming in with a lot of momentum, and as long as I guarantee Shane Beamer will not allow his players to say that's Vanderbilt over there. Don't do that. Go in because that's how a Vanderbilt team will beat you. They go in there respecting them. They respect them, but listen. I know my Florida Gators lost to Georgia. Florida used the same method against Georgia that Georgia used against other teams. We're just gonna beat you up. We ain't as talented as y'all. No, they came out with the loss. But as you mentioned, it was 2020 Texas A&M, South Carolina going to the half. It was 2020 with 6 minutes left in the clock, Florida, Georgia. Now, Georgia came out with the win, and congratulations to them. The fear that was on that sideline in Georgia is what Billy Napier has to learn how to do week in and week out because third-string quarterback on any team, it's going to be hard to win. I don't care who you're playing, but when the team rallies around you. So I think for South Carolina, just go out there, look at Diego and say, hey, Diego, listen, we're going to live in this backfield all day. Ain't nothing you can do about it. You better handing the ball off might be because you're going to make him one-dimensional if he indeed is, which plays into the hands of South Carolina defense altogether.
Let me ask you this real quick. This is fascinating from my standpoint because I've watched when you were at Florida, you played for Steve Spurrier. You know, we had Lou Holtz, and then we had Holtz follow Spurrier. And so, like my co-host Preston will tell you, when it was with Lou Holtz, they had these violent preseason games, these incredibly violent preseason practices and everything. By the time South Carolina, I know you played South Carolina late in the season, you were seeing a team that was beat down. And we would laugh. Steve Spurrier here, they called it country club practices in the preseason. And he'd get you ready. Y'all always play 2 directional Louisiana or Michigan teams. You always had 2 preseason scrimmages before you went and played Tennessee. But Spurrier's teams played great late in the season because they were fresh. And if you look at Shane Beamer now, in his first 3 years, the final 4 games of the season, that's 12 games total, he's 8-4. And that now includes Tennessee. That includes 2 top wins over Tennessee and Clemson. He beat Auburn a few years ago. He beat Florida the 2021 season. He's got good victories late in the season. And I wonder if it's some of that, what we look up here and saw how it was run from Holtz to Spurrier to Muschamp, the mentality of not killing your players in August and September and having them fresh for November.
Former players understand current players, and good coaches understand that if my best players ain't on the field and healthy later in the year, I'm going to make life harder on myself. Like, trying to prove a point of how hard you can practice when no one cares, that doesn't work. I got recruited by South Carolina in 2000. They had gone 2 straight seasons of not winning no games in Lou Holtz, and I went to South Carolina's banquet, and Lou Holtz gave out winner certificates. Ain't no way in the world. Like, and they had Kalimba Edwards, they had John Abraham, and I think the thing about it is, right, who cares if you can practice hard if you don't play hard? Like, okay, we can practice extremely hard, but we beat up. No, it's the end of the season. You in the SEC, we know. Strength coaches and nutritionists are the reason why teams win games at the end of the year. They know how to get you right. They can get you right in the weight room. We run every day at practice, and the freshest teams got the bet. And that's, like I said, that's all sports. Coach Spurrier knew this. Man, I recruited good players. He said this. As long as we got good players, I'm going to be here. And when the talents are going, because that's on my resume. Coach Spurrier understood, man, they know how to play. I recruited them. They know what we're doing. 11-2, 3 straight seasons. At South Carolina, what's the indoor facility called at South Carolina? The Steve Spurrier indoor. Coach Spurrier knows, and Shane Beamer knows this. I'm gonna do 2 things. I'm gonna listen to my coaches that used to be former players, and I'm gonna look at my players. I'm gonna say, if I got 18, 19-year-olds coming in looking like 40-year-olds, that's not good. I need guys fresh, doing the things they need to do, because when the healthiest team at the end of the season has the best shot. And he knows I got to keep these guys healthy. That way, because I got to go deeper to my playbook or cut back when I got backups in. They don't know the playbook like the guys that's played all year. So, Shane Beamer's getting it, man. And like I said, I think the thing about Shane Beamer is the frustration always comes is South Carolina can beat anybody they play. Most teams can't say that. But they'll lose the teams that they should have beat. right? And they'll beat a team and no one thought they could beat. They got to start winning the game they're supposed to win, be close in the games and nobody think they can win. And like I said, Texas A&M, that was impressive, man. I mean, that
Ben,
was impressive all the way around.
Ben, look, go ahead. I've got to get y'all two on together again next week. This is fun because we got Yancy Porter and Rodney Orr coming up next. But Ben and Will, both of y'all tag out, let people know how they can follow you. Awesome discussion. This was fun. This is like watching two great chess players play chess. Ben, tag out.
Hey, man, you can follow me always on all social media outlets at Ben Troupe 84. Make sure y'all listening to 84 Reasons, No Weddings in the Fall, and winning the division. Appreciate you, Rob. Appreciate you, Will.
I love it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, always appreciate it. Look forward to catching up next week. And it's just, you can follow me, Will, WIL, Gunter, at Twitter. And, of course, go to our website, 1075thegame.com. You can download the app. Doesn't matter where you're at. You can be in Mobile. You can be in Memphis. You can be in Knoxville. And you can listen to us 6 to 9 each and every morning Eastern time.
6 to 9, and that would be 5 to 8 our time, Duck Hunters hours. Yeah. I love it. Great job, Will. You always come prepared. You'll be a trial lawyer in your next life, okay? Have a good one. I love it, man. Hey, Brenden, those two, that was a cool discussion. We're going to get another great one, a good one, as they say down in the country, a good egg. Egg. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Check him out Monday nights, 6 p.m. Central on Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis and all over the Magnolia State on Super Talk Mississippi. Great show. We got him. And also, simultaneously, as they say down in Pickens County, Alabama, simultaneously at the same damn time, we got Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, since 1996. They have covered Alabama football, basketball, baseball. They cover Crimson Tide sports like kudzu, cotton, and humidity cover the South. Proud to have both you gentlemen on the show with us. And Rodney's written a great book, Bigger Than Bama. I suggest you read it. It's about way more than football. It's about life. It is an inspirational story. Two of the best guys around right now. Yancy, let's get started. What an explosion. Rodney and I and the rest of the civilized free world, 63 to whatever up in Fayetteville. Ole Miss put it all together. We're going to have dueling banjos here, Ole Miss and Bama. But, y'all, big win. And now you got Georgia coming to town Saturday in another loser leaves town match. Gordon Soley would be proud to be the announcer on TV. A vertical suplex by the Georgia Bulldogs. I love it.
Yeah, you know, everybody just wanted that Georgia game to matter, right? That was the whole objective when they lost those two early games, and they got there. So now you gotta. They lost the first two games, big games, so to speak. That the Mulligans are gone, and it's do or die, like you said. It's winner, and Ole Miss advances, and I guess to round 4 of the playoffs that started 3 weeks ago, and lose, and they're out. Georgia, I still think they can get in there with a loss to Ole Miss and take care of Tennessee. Not sure it's quite winner or loser for Georgia, but for Ole Miss, it definitely is.
Yeah. Rodney, last weekend, Alabama was off, and this is the SEC grind that we preach and we talk about. You're going down to Baton Rouge, where I think from 1969 to 1999, you were 30 years without a loss down there. You've won more than anybody. The only other team that's won as many times in Baton Rouge is Ole Miss. What do you think is going to happen Saturday night down in Baton Rouge?
Well, first of all, let me go back to Yancy for just a minute. When I was following this Ole Miss score on Saturday, he was in my mind. The way he called out the Rebels last week.
Yes,
I mean, he got after them. I think they were all listening. I think Lane was listening to Yancy. But yeah, they jumped on them pretty good, man. That was an impressive win, and it's going to make, like Yancy said, that makes for this Georgia game coming up. I mean, not just for the Ole Miss Georgia fans, but for everybody. I mean, I think this is an exciting game to look forward to for those two teams. And, Lane's been here before. Lane's been here. He's had opportunities to kind of kick the door in before, and it kind of didn't work out his way. So we'll see what happens, with Georgia. That's going to be a huge game. Certainly going to be interested in that. As far as Alabama, hey, be honest with you guys. Like I said in my Sunday thoughts on Tighter Insider that I do every Sunday night, even though Alabama didn't play on Saturday, I did gain a little bit more optimism because I watched the other teams play. And they're just not that good. I mean, it's just an average year of college football in terms of the quality that we're seeing, just my opinion. I mean, you look at Georgia, who I still think if you gave me a vote, Georgia would be number one, probably. That's just me. Everybody has an opinion, but I would say this. Yeah, I watch them. They're up and down. They're hot and cold. I mean, one week they look, there's Kentucky. They didn't look great against Mississippi State. They got beat by Alabama. Then they come out and they just totally dominate Texas physically in Austin. And then this last game here, they really had a tough time. I thought Florida went toe to toe with them, until the final 5 or 7 minutes of the game, whatever it was.
Exactly. Rodney and I were texting during the game.
Yeah. Well, when you're watching a game, no matter if you're a fan or not, there's some frustrating moments when you see them. And I texted Brenden and said, look, when you can't execute the snap of a field goal in a crucial moment of a game, and these kind of mishaps continue to happen, it does make you wonder. I thought Billy Napier did a fantastic job. They had the third string quarterback in there. He wasn't really a guy that I think is going to beat Georgia. But when you see a bad snap like that and you're like, I mean, what else can you do to lose a game? Yeah.
And Rodney and I, sorry, Rob, but Rodney and I were going back and forth about it. And I just said to Rodney, I said, he's a great coach. He's a great, and Rob said this the other day, it's a great XO. He's just not a captain in a sense as he has a hard time finishing these things. And when it comes down to pressure, it's like this in broadcasting. When it comes down to pressure, everything that seems so simple, like weeks for an entire time, becomes the most difficult thing in the world because your butt cheeks are clenching, and you got and now you're in that pressure moment, and you've got to make that right decision. And if you start thinking and aiming and trying to control, you're gonna screw it up. And they're, coach after coach, I've heard interviews over my life with my father have said, they've had a mentor at some point that came to them and said, look, you got to let go. You got to let go and just go play football. And I think sometimes that we get so analytical, and you get analysis paralysis. And we had Will Gunter on before, and he was talking about Steve Spurrier in South Carolina, and how Steve just kind of always did things his own way, his own strategy. I think he thought, a little bit more, kind of draw it up in the dirt, and you go here, you go there, run the skinny post, and let's go play football. I don't think it's that simple, but sometimes it is. And I think sometimes we when we can't get the right people on the field for a field goal, or we can't get the snap right, or the counts wrong, or dumb penalties, or we're jumping off sides, or we're making stupid decisions, and we're undisciplined. Rodney and I were talking about how that just comes down to Billy Napier and the head coach, because the buck stops with him.
Well, both of y'all are right, and Yancy, it. If you coach people too much and you micromanage them, they start popping. They start looking over their shoulders subconsciously and going, okay, what have I done wrong? It's kind of you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And that's a brilliant take from both Rodney and Brenden. And I agree. And Yancy, you think about Lane Kiffin. He's different. He's one way in front of cameras. Off the cameras, he's fairly introverted, I would say. There's no other way to be introverted. You either are or you're not. But going into this game Saturday, again, how many storylines are going to be, this is the biggest game to this point in Ole Miss football history? I mean, is it going to be that type of atmosphere at the Vault Saturday?
Well, it most certainly is. But we've said this is the biggest game in Ole Miss history. It seems like a dozen times in the last 10 or so years. So,
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
yeah,
Game of the
it's
century.
the biggest game this year,
Yeah, I know.
most
I know.
most definitely. But I think you look at the last when Ole Miss just played absolutely miserable that first half against Oklahoma, and they got it together. They've been leading the country in penalties with 13.5 penalties a game, and they've only had two penalties since halftime of that Oklahoma game. They haven't allowed a sack. Their Dart came out of the funk he was in. The offensive line is finally pass blocking. They've had 17 sacks in the last 6 quarters. They're just I don't know. I guess all the players knew it. This is why we all came here to win a championship. What are we doing? And it's just kind of like some of those teams that you see, Super Bowl teams in the NFL, when at the end of the season they just kind of turn it on and they go on a run. It seems like that's kind of what's happened. And we'll see. I mean, last year Ole Miss totally revamped the roster after Georgia just absolutely dominated them. And they added 4 offensive linemen. They added 4 defensive linemen. They added 2 linebackers. They got longer in the secondary. All of the weaknesses that Lane thought that compared to Georgia when they matched up against them, they made. And we're going to see if that all comes to fruition or not Saturday. But undoubtedly, the key of the game is going to be watching Ole Miss's offensive line against Georgia's defensive line. That's where Georgia really whipped them last year, and that's going to be a really key. I was shocked. I mean, I thought Florida would play them tough. I think Florida wins that game if they got their starting quarterback there. Florida out physicaled Georgia at the line of scrimmage, and that's what was so shocking to me. And Georgia's like an NFL team, right? They look like world beaters one week, they look very average the next. So we'll see. Hopefully this isn't their world beater weekend, but it's going to be a hell of a matchup. And yeah, the crowd will be absolutely. Fans are already starting to pack in Oxford, so it's going to be a huge weekend.
It will be. And let me say as we segue to Rodney, because last night Courtney Morgan, general manager of Alabama football, was there speaking at the Touchdown Club in Memphis, which of course the title sponsor is LandersFordMemphis.com. One of our sponsors we're so damn proud to have. Brad Bellamy, the general manager out there. Don Kitchens. Wow, what a presence he is at Landers Ford. The great people out there, Ken Ritchie. They're just the number one Ford dealership in the Mid-South. They're great people to work with. They're open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department is open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And they're great people to work with in the sense that you call out there, talk to our man, Brad Bellamy, GM. He's the quarterback. To a salesman and get you squared away, walk you through the process. We've already got people. The first day or two, we sold 2 vehicles for them. The Bronco, that new Ford Bronco with the Sasquatch package, I recommend that highly. Yes, I do believe in Sasquatch. I'll admit it. I'm in full disclosure. But they're great people to work with. Go to LandersFordMemphis.com. And bottom line is, if you're looking for a new car, truck, or SUV, they're the place to go. They will find you what you're looking for. And more than anything else, they're committed to the relationship once you buy the vehicle, where their motto is, if you didn't buy your last car, truck, or SUV from Landers, you probably paid too much. Now, Rodney, impressive guy last night. Courtney Morgan walks up. I just met him at the Touchdown Club, and, we're having fun. And he goes, hey, man, anybody ever tell you, who you look like? I said, no. He goes, Kirby. I went, well, Kirby Smart? He goes, you look just like Kirby Smart. I went, well, I'd like his money. I'll take that in a heartbeat. But, Rodney, if you had a chance to sit down and talk to Courtney Morgan, because this guy, he laid it out. Our president, Greg Cotton, an attorney in Collierville, really good guy. He's a former Alabama cheerleader. And we did a Q&A. Harold Grader did it. And it was cool how they ranked the players for NIL. And something I'm going to throw out there, guys, it was really cool to hear. He goes, you think that it's all about the highest bidder for NIL. He goes, we deal with the moms and the dads and the families and all. He goes, it's more about the relationships. He said, because half these kids, people back home are going to take it from them anyway. And he said, they want the relationships with people that they can trust. And he said, when I first got here, they said, Coach Saban wants to meet you. And I'm like, oh wow. He goes, I went in there and he goes, he was really cool. He goes, he's just an old ball coach. And he goes, look, man, I'm here to help. If you need help, man, I'm here to help, but I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to help you. Rodney, I thought that was really cool. Courtney Morgan has been with Kalen DeBoer since the Fresno days. And you need to meet this guy. I think it'd be a cool story for you to write for Tighter and Cider. I know you got enough stories, ideas probably, but I'm just saying that would be a good one.
Yeah. Well, we talk about Courtney quite a bit. I think he's one of the key cogs, obviously, in, what Kalen DeBoer is doing here. He's going to, certainly help them with their roster, whether it be recruiting or in the portal. I think that's something that was desperately needed. And so Kalen DeBoer bringing him in, look, I think it all starts with your staff, the people that you have around you. Because, I know the last few years, I thought Saban had been in a situation where he had to do everything, man. He was a one-man band, in my opinion. But anyway, with all that said, Courtney Morgan is, again, I think he's the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. And, fortunately, he's here at Alabama. Now, with all that said, there's a big game coming up Saturday night in Baton Rouge, right? This is you talked about an elimination game. This is probably it. Both these teams, Alabama and LSU, clinging to playoff hopes. It's a really big game because I'm just going to tell you guys, and I'm sure you can imagine. If you lose 3 games in that first year or whatever, it is what it is. Sometimes a transition like this, things are going to happen. You've got to get a little time to get your roster on, to get the players that fit your system, whatever it is. But that ain't the way that's done here. There's people already, in a tizzy, calling this the biggest game of Kalen DeBoer's career. So I think from a perception standpoint, to kind of calm these waters down a little bit, it'd be great for Alabama to win the game because these people are already on the edge over here.
Well, that's something that Courtney Morgan was asked by Harold Grader last night. He said, "You ever have these moments where it kind of hits you like, wow, I'm at Alabama," and he looked at him. He goes, "Every day." He goes, even Coach DeBoer does it. He goes, we're at Alabama. He said, it's another state at Michigan. I coached with him. I've been to some places. I've been a lot of places. He goes, but this, a lot of people care. Same thing at Ole Miss, man. A lot of people care. You're going to have 60,000 plus at Vaught Hemingway Stadium Saturday. 100,000 milling around town in the Grove and whatever. How big is this one in terms of matchups? Let's talk about the running game for Ole Miss versus that front 7 for Georgia. The one thing Georgia's typically got under Kirby is a badass front 7 that's deep.
Yeah, that's why I said that's going to be the key matchup to me. Georgia struggled running the ball as much as Ole Miss fans has complained about running the ball. Georgia's averaging about 30 yards less rushing a game than Georgia, but Ole Miss under Kiffin, the running game has always been the staple. Everybody misconstrues what Kiffin's offense is all about, but they lost their starting running back there for the season against Arkansas. But I think that's really going to open the door for some other guys. We've all talked about this. What's going on? Why is Bentley not getting touches? Why is not the Clemson transfer, Thomas getting touches? Why is Amos not getting touches? So this is going to kind of force their hand, right? And I think that's going to help a lot of the Ole Miss fans because they've been so frustrated about why Parrish is the focal point of the offense. So hate it for him. Nobody wants to see a kid get injured, but it really could be a positive for Ole Miss in the end.
Rodney, running game at Alabama, what kind of grade do you give it? Because you got to be able to knock heads in practice every day, because that develops physical toughness, and that's a trademark. That's a trademark. It's a standard of Alabama. And speaking of Kiffin in the running game, I believe he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama 14, 15, and 16 when a guy named Derrick Henry was there. And I think in 2015 when he won the Heisman, Derrick ran for 6,000 yards or something like that.
Yeah.
Close to it.
Yeah. 2,200 plus,
Yeah.
What an amazing season. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now going back to your question here, what exactly was it, Rob?
The running game at Alabama.
Yeah. Okay.
Grade on that for you.
Yeah, well, obviously it was a lot better this last game. I mean, against Missouri, they ran for 271 yards, so it was a lot better. And this is what I think. This is what I think about Alabama. Watching that game, kind of seeing how after Tennessee, Milroe threw it 45 times. And then seeing this game, what they did with him. It wasn't a one read; it was a no read. I mean, it was like take the snap and throw the ball directly to this guy. That's the way they started the game. So they made it really simple for him. And then once he kind of got into a rhythm, they let him start kind of throwing the ball down the field more. So I think what we're going to see with Alabama, I'm thinking, is they're going to try to build this running game with Haynes, who had a really good game, couple of really nice runs. Jam Miller always, has some really good runs. He had 2 touchdowns in this last game. And Milroe, build it, start there in the quick throws, the easy throws, get him in rhythm. And then maybe some shots down the field, and you feel a little bit better about, kind of working the other throws. But I really think, where we are right now with Jalen Milroe is that he just really isn't ready, and probably won't be this season, to take that next step as a guy. You want to put the ball in his hands as a passer, 30, 35 times a game. I mean, I think you have to have everything kind of working together like we talked about, and then mix in, his ability to throw the ball.
It'd be interesting to see what he does. I mean, on the next level. Remember, Lamar Jackson liked to run it a lot. Then he evolved into a truly great NFL quarterback. He won the Heisman, obviously, at Louisville, but that's a great point. And Justice Haynes out of Beaufort, Georgia. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't call targeting when he ran over that poor.
I like helmeting better. Helmeting.
That's a new term I've come up with. Helmeting.
15-yard penalty, personal foul.
Yeah.
Helmeting. The helmeting is going to be pulling the hat down over the head, not the face mask. You got to make like a double-handed, grab the helmet and do like a helmeting thing. That would be
almost a stiff arm equivalent. But let me say something about Coolmore Logistics, reliable trucking, Memphis-based with a global reach. Everything has to be delivered by a truck. Okay, at some point, rising fuel cost, not fun. Lower fuel cost, it'll be great. By the way, today, everybody get out and vote, exercise your right as an American. A lot of people have paid a heavy price for us to have that right. If you don't vote, you can't complain. But guys, Yancy, I want to go back and forth with both of y'all because, we're talking Ole Miss and Alabama, but the SEC and all. Looking at this league right now, give me your thoughts, anything y'all want to talk about here, because in terms of other things in the SEC that you're concerned about in the final stretch for the Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if you look at the SEC, it's consistently inconsistent. That's the name of the game for all of the teams in the SEC, and there's a common thing. We've been talking about it. You look at Alabama. They have not run the ball like they want to this year. You look at Ole Miss. They certainly haven't run the ball like they want to this year. Yeah. You look at Georgia. They certainly haven't been able to run the ball like they want to this year. You look at Texas. They certainly haven't run the ball like they want to this year. all of the big dogs, so to speak, in the SEC this year have struggled running the football, and that's why I think that you haven't had any consistency. When you struggle running the football, you are going to go up and down, and I think that's really the name of the game. If I could say what's the theme of the SEC this year is nobody's running the football like they want to, and that the results is you're going to have about 6 teams that are 6-2. How they're going to decide who's going to Atlanta in the playoffs, I have no idea how that's going to work out, but it's going to happen. You're going to have 5 or 6 teams that are going to be 6-2, and because they struggled running the football.
Rodney, truer words have not been said on this show by either, well, both of y'all have said it. And I think it's because the teams don't have the offensive linemen to do it. Everything has become about 7-on-7 camps and skill players. If you've got the offensive line to impose your will on somebody late in the game, you're going to control the clock. You're going to physically beat them down. And if they don't have a lot of depth, they're going to say Urkel early in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Agree?
Well, first of all,
on to something.
First of all, who's Lisa?
She is help us support breast cancer.
Okay.
And it's a fundraiser.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fundraiser that Brenden is friends with her. And
sorry, we're doing a lot more.
Rodney about that. I'll be right back.
Sorry about pop that on. I didn't want to. Just wanted to get it in. She's supporting. She's they do this thing called. I think it's a national thing, but it's Fab 40 over 40. You're one of those deals. But then this is all for breast cancer research. Lisa is a Florida woman, and she is I think she's made it now, Rob, to the second round and now the third round, which is coming to the finalist round. But if she gets all these votes, if she wins the contest for votes, I think it's like a $40,000 prize. She's donating all of her money and prizes to the victims of hurricanes in Florida this year. So we are all about that, and so we're all about our peeps down here, and just anybody, because they've got a storm out there right now. But Lisa's doing great. She's a great gal. It doesn't need to do this, but anyways, she's our candidate to go all the way to the top. So click the QR code. Go ahead and give her a vote. And a vote for her is a vote for Florida, and a vote for breast cancer.
I agree with that. Let me say something real quick, guys. See this stuff right here, doctor formulated organic fiber. Put a teaspoon of this in your coffee every morning. It'll fight. It's a prebiotic. Okay. It'll fight gut infection and bacteria. A lot of times people eat and they swell up with a big old belly like Junior Samples from Hee Haw. That's BR549. This stuff works. You can order it from the vitamin shop, Olive Branch or Oxford, Mississippi. Buy you this stuff. Vitamin shop. They will ship it to you. Buy a bunch of it. They've got a lot of great. But no, I agree. I love what we do on this show to support what Lisa's doing. And Rodney, go ahead and pick back up. I just wanted to get that in for one of our sponsors.
Yeah, well, again, that was a good summary I thought Yancy had there about, these teams lacking in the run game and all of that. And, it's crazy. You watch from week to week and you see teams and you think, okay, this might be a team that's going to jump out at you. I thought Texas A&M, after they beat LSU, and I've kind of followed Texas A&M. I know their history. I've been following them since 1968, all that stuff. And, they always kind of had a pattern where they get to a certain point and then they fall off the track. Well, they fell off the track against South Carolina again. But I really thought, this might be Elko. This year might be the team that, kind of takes that step. And, man, you saw South Carolina. They played a great game. That was a tremendous performance. I'm telling you, that Lenore Sellers, this guy is a redshirt freshman. When he decides to take off and run, there's no indecisiveness. That's one thing about Milroe, I'll say. Milroe, if he would run like that with his ability, I think it certainly would benefit him, benefit Alabama for sure. But I was really impressed with Lenore Sellers. Tennessee looks pretty average. Like I said, they beat Alabama. Alabama looks pretty average for the most part. So I'm really interested to see which team can survive, this stretch run. Right now, and it's going to be a great game. I don't rule out Ole Miss, but, Georgia's kind of, to me, I trust Kirby in terms of, he manages a team extremely well in these circumstances. So, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Rodney and Yancy, the SEC this year, Ben Troupe talked about it in the first segment. Parity, no, it's just that there's so many good teams in this league. When you think about Vanderbilt, you think about the bottom, and they're this year, they're 6-3. With a guy that, if Vandy wins 8 games, Diego Pavia, in my opinion, definitely should be in New York. And I don't see how he doesn't win the Heisman Trophy. If they win 9, I mean, who knows? Everything's on the table right now with Vanderbilt. And I think the advantage Vandy has is no matter how hard the coaches say, you better be ready, they're good, they're thinking this is the old Vanderbilt. That's why they're a dangerous team, guys. That's I think.
I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I mean, obviously you're pretty high on Pavia. I am too. I think he's the difference. I mean, I think he is definitely the difference. He has brought a confidence, and I know the coaching and all the guys they brought with him, but he brings a mindset of a confidence that I think rubs off on the whole team. I mean, and I think you see Vanderbilt making plays. It's little things. They make plays now that normally they would screw it up when they had the opportunity. And, I think a lot of that is Pavia, man. I think he's so confident and he brings so much to that team.
Yancy, you know who Diego Pavia reminds me of? He's a modern-day John Forcade out of Gretna, Louisiana, Archbishop Shaw.
just kind of brings that
remember
swagger.
Forcade?
Oh, yeah. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago.
How big of a badass was John Forcade?
he was something else. But, it's fun. I mean, everybody's rooting for Vanderbilt, right? I mean, how can you not root for Vanderbilt? I think they're universal. I mean, look, I don't. It would be the neatest thing ever if Vanderbilt could make the playoffs, wouldn't it? I mean, it would be the story of the century. So, I mean, look, I mean, I love watching their quarterback. I love watching how tough that team plays. They don't probably have a half a dozen players on the whole team that could play for the top 6 teams in the SEC, and they're able to play at that kind of a level. I mean, it's fun to watch, and that quarterback certainly is leading. He's the captain of the boat, and they're doing an outstanding job. I mean, they got a tough schedule to finish out. I've already picked them to beat Tennessee.
Wow.
It's going to be yeah. I do. They play in Nashville, and I think they're going to beat them. I look this year.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one, Yancy. Just so you know, I'm with you on that one, hardcore. Me and you on that one. Just going to put.
I pick on to beat Tennessee. I've called that for a few weeks now. I just think, at the end of the year, I don't know how they're going to finish it. This is going to be the most fascinating thing. I haven't looked at the tiebreaker system. I don't know how they're going to do this because I really think you're going to have 5 or 6 teams that are.
Well, no, there is one in place though. We talked to Ellis Johnson yesterday, and he said that
it's complicated.
It's complicated, but there is a tiebreaker in place.
It's going to have to go down to the coin. I know the last one is a coin toss. And boy, you talk about some conspiracies on that. They better have that thing on live TV for everybody to see. Because
I heard it's going to be in the smoke
50 anyway.
They need to get rid of the conference championship games, honestly.
They do. I've heard a conspiracy theory, guys, and I don't know if it's true, but there are no conspiracies. There's also no coincidences that a smoke-filled room in the back of the Birmingham Country Club is where the decision will be made. I'm kidding. But, guys, let me tell y'all something. Ann Camp Lee, my friend and also the owner of RumbleBoxingGym.com in Memphis, she's a Vanderbilt grad. And she was texting me after the Auburn game the other day. My cousin, Helen Nobles Polk Bird, she was texting me about, make sure y'all are there for Christmas. Go Doors. And I'm like, I've got a lot more. A lot of family members went to Vanderbilt, and even my grandfather and his brother, Cadwallader, from the grave are coming back. They went to law school there going, Go Doors. I've never heard Go Doors, Stephen Patrick Walsh in Atlanta, Go Doors this much. But I'm just going to close out by just saying something real quick. Guys, check out all of our sponsors at Sidelines.live, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, on the Square, Historic Square in Collierville, Tennessee, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. 30 boxes a day coming in. Filson, Schaefer, Pendleton, Duckhead, Barber, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots, great looking women's clothes, luggage, you name it. HewlettandDunn.com. Great people to work with. Let them know you heard about it on Sidelines. Rodney and Yancy and Brenden.
Yeah.
The SEC, the TV numbers and all, 4 million is the magic number that you want to watch a game. That's considered to be a good day. That's kind of like, you know, 1 over par, 2 over par on the golf course as an amateur. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
How much money do you think we're going to make off this 12-team playoff? We made $450 million on a 4-team. Is there automatically going to be $1,350 million, or is it going to be more? I mean, I don't think anyone knows that.
I don't think anyone knows that answer. I don't think we know until the sponsorships and everything kick in, but I don't think there's an answer for that yet because we haven't done it.
Wouldn't y'all like to be selling airtime?
Well, I just think it's going to be like bowl games. You know, we had the Weed Whacker Bowl and all that stuff forever. It's the same thing. I mean, that, you know, it's like the Chick-fil-A fish bowl and BS like that. You know, it's like, you know, I've been to enough of them, Rob. I've been to enough Outback Bowls.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough Outback Bowls to know it's going to be a similar thing. It's just all a sellout. It's a money grab. It's all BS. It doesn't matter. It is just pay for play. It's a scrimmage.
Well, think about this.
Bowl?
Think about this, though. The bowls outside of these playoffs, I mean, they are going to struggle selling tickets. And they don't sell local tickets. And why the locals are going to want to watch it, right? So it's just going to come down to corporates are going to buy big blocks of tickets, and that's about it. I mean, it is going to be. I mean, if Ole Miss doesn't make the playoffs and they go to I don't know, just name a bowl, they literally might take 500 fans, and half of that will be the families.
Yeah.
You know,
it's just, how many players like at Ole Miss would opt out?
Oh,
how many players at Alabama would opt out?
Yeah, I mean, you're just bringing a shell of your team. So they got to expand this playoffs. What playoffs do we have that there's only 12 teams on any level in any sport? None. Right? And literally, you're going to have 6 teams that are 6-2, 10-2 in the SEC. And how do you decide? I mean, 2 of them probably are going to get absolutely screwed, and rightfully so. Their fan bases are going to be livid because every team deserves to be there equally as the other one. You got to at least go to 16. They really need to make this thing, I think, down the road to 32 teams and cut all of the bowls. Cut them. I'm sorry. They're done.
Well,
they're done.
The bowl
32 teams, and the bowls are the playoffs, right?
Exactly.
Those are the playoffs.
The formula. Yeah.
So, we're going to go to 16, and then they're going to go to probably 20, 24 with some buys, but eventually go to 32. And then how much more does it open it up for the interest around the country? All of these games will be even more important. People thought that it's going to make the regular season less important. No, it's making it so much more interesting now. And think about when you go to 16 and then 20, then 24, then 32, you'll be having teams like Houston and SMU and all these schools that are literally playing for the playoffs. It is going to make it so much more dynamic. I think this year, this is the first year of an expanded playoffs, and they see the attendance at these bowl games, and it is going to look like a movie theater around the country. I mean, literally.
I think's going to happen. You go to 32, okay? The bowls become the playoffs. Y'all are right about that.
Exactly.
But when people try to say the regular season in college basketball doesn't matter, that's what people say who don't follow a good program. You got Chris Beard at Ole Miss. You got Nate Oates at Alabama, who's 1 or 2 in the country. You got Bruce Pearl at Auburn. You got Todd Golden at Florida. Coach at South Carolina. Look at this. You watch. I watch every game. Hell, I watch the Grizzlies games. I love going to the Grizzlies games. You pay attention. Now, you don't need to get there till late in the third quarter in an NBA game because it doesn't even start till the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But y'all are right. And, Rodney, you think about it, the interest when that's what ESPN envisioned. Lee Fitting, executive producer, said 3 or 4 years ago, he goes, when we expand this playoff in November, we're going to have the attention of everybody in the country on all these games. And, guys, I found myself the other night watching Pitt and SMU, and SMU going 48-21. Rodney, your Sunday night forum has got to be like crazy. Now, the Auburn forum, it was like Nurse Ratched and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest giving out the meds after the loss to Vandy. But I mean, Jack Nicholson was Hugh Freeze, man. It was crazy.
There's no reason for the loser of the LSU Alabama game to most likely be out of the playoffs. That is ridiculous. There's no reason that the Ole Miss Georgia is most likely. That is ridiculous. I mean, all four of those teams could win the national championship just as easy as any other team in the country. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It really is.
Rodney, this is one of the best discussions we've had in memory. Throw your weight behind that one. I like that.
Well, Yancy just sold me, man.
Yeah,
let's go. I mean, let's go to 24 now. You know,
it makes it so much better.
I mean, it does. It makes a lot of sense. You know, I think that's right. And like you said, the bowl games, they're useless. I mean, players are going to opt out, just like they did last year, and it's going to. I mean, what value is it? I mean, I just don't see it. So yeah, I agree. Now all of a sudden you add all those teams into a playoff mix.
Wow.
There's nobody opting out then, right?
I mean, everybody's talking about every game on Mondays nationally, and it opens up for the Memphis States and the Tulanes and the SMUs and all the Houstons and all this. They literally have a chance to be a part of it every week. And then you have teams from Ole Miss and Alabama and Florida, Georgia that are keeping up with those teams, right? So you learn more about those schools. Why they stopped it at 12. It's like NCAA. Come on now.
Well, I think they just walk it in though. You're
going to go 12,
and they're going to go
24,
and they're going to see because you can't there is this is great theory logistically because I come from TV. Okay, logistically, this is a fucking nightmare. Okay,
it's
like
gonna happen.
It's a fucking nightmare. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say that. That's how you say it in TV, actually professionally, because it is the worst nightmare ever because you have to cover these games and you don't know what the outcomes are. So then you don't know where you're going to the next deal. So and then you've got all and football teams are massive. So that's the other thing. It's not like NBA. Well, it's not like college. You are moving people and staff and shit and stuff, and you're pushing it all one direction. It's a lot, as we all know, to get that. So I think there's sort of like. I agree. I think you got to roll this out a little slower. Where are you going to put all these games at once? You got to figure all this stuff out, and there's a lot to figure out. And I think that's smart to do it that way.
Well, here's the thing: the current playoff. Well, we had the BCS 2 team, then the 4 team. That's kind of like, there's a story about Cajun Man. He liked sausage, but when he started putting shrimp and chicken and andouille and a good roux with it and rice and oysters and all kind of other stuff, that's gumbo. We want more in the terms of endearment in the business world. Follow one trail, cha-ching, the money trail. They're going to smell this money. They're going to see all this money, and they're going to say 24, 32. And you know what? It will not lessen the importance of the regular season because if you don't have a good regular season, you won't be able to get to the playoffs. It's going to create more interest in college football than we've had since Sewanee went 5 out of 6 days they won games. Get this book, Unrivaled, Sewanee Unrivaled, 1899.org. Awesome Christmas gift. Order it now. But this started football college, guys. November 6th, tomorrow, guys, is the 155th birthday of college football. It started in New Jersey, Rutgers 6, Princeton 4. I mean, we have been doing this a long time. Think about the guys that were playing in that first game. We're going to wrap up. We're all veterans of the war between the states. I mean, they hated each other. You talk about rivalries, man. Hey,
did you say 6-4 was the score?
Yeah, 6-4. There were 25 players on each side of the line of scrimmage. They went extra innings. 6-4. Talk about, hey, didn't Penn State have a game like that against Iowa a few years ago? It was 6-4. They were
Auburn beat Mississippi State 3-2, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Back 50
6-4. 4 is a very unusual number, though.
Yeah, it is.
It's very unusual the way they look. We'll wrap it up now. Guys, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed country in the history of the world. No matter what happens, just think about this. We always work it out. Yancy, tell them how they can follow you. Rodney, you do the same. And I'll say I have the best executive producer in the world. I am so blessed to have Brenden do this for us every day, and his dad, Buddy. This whole channel, and watch the Buddy Martin show. I'll be on there tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. But Rodney, say goodbye, and you and Yancy, and we'll let everybody go.
Well, I appreciate it. It's tiderinsider.com. It's only $48 a year. If you're an Alabama fan, you can get instant access with your credit card. If you prefer, there is an address there to send a check. Gives you all our premium information, but also our community of Alabama fans there, all sports forum. And of course, our TV show tonight, lives aired throughout most of the state of Alabama. Tider Insider TV with Gary Harris, WVUA 23 in Tuscaloosa.
Love it. Yancy.
Mine's just at Yancy Porter. Very simple and very short.
A simple man. Skinner. I like that. All right,
next week we talk about how Lane Kiffin's leaving and coming to Florida.
No.
Bye, Yancy. You see, all the power, Rob. I have all the power.
Hey,
I control all things. So
Brenden,
don't piss off your caddy or your producer. That's
I had the phone off today. I think that helped. Less distractions.
Internet's kind of busy today.
Yeah.
So it's a little flooded with traffic. It's a little crazy today out there. So folks, be safe, watch it, be patient in your lines, and go and vote.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank y'all for watching. God bless you.
Results would happen overnight. In this world,